keep feeling really hurt when a certain button is activated and triggered? And is it really hard for you to keep your mouth shut and stay calm inside? I'm going to show you exactly how I have mastered this situation every time. I spent over a decade empowering myself emotionally and learned how to stay calm and heart-centered while feeling a strong emotional pain. And at the end of the video, I'm going to share with you my top secret on how I was able to feel content and relaxed the very next morning after my big emotional breakdown, as if nothing had happened. A few days ago, I found myself in the midst of an emotional trigger. I could feel an energy build up during the day, and by the evening, 1,000 tears were rolling down my face. I simply couldn't stop crying. Lots of painful thoughts were running around my mind, and I was reminded of other events that were similar to the one that had triggered me. This release was going on for about 2 hours until I finally fell asleep. I can't remember when I had something like this the last time, but in the past, about 20 years ago, I could feel like this sometimes 3 times a week. So I've made it my goal to actually master emotional triggers. When I woke up in the morning, I was feeling calm, content and relaxed, and I could hardly remember the pain that I had the night before. And of course, it felt like the pain was coming from a very long time ago, which was true. I will explain that in a minute. But first, let me tell you to make sure that you are not projecting your pain onto those people around you, your loved ones, and to make sure that you're able to stay calm. And that is to own your pain, to actually feel it 100%, to acknowledge it, to be present with it, and to know it is yours. This is what I had to do as the very first step, to just notice it and say, okay, this is my pain. It's got nothing to do with the other people, because that's what we try to do. We try to blame them or project it onto them and say they should take some steps to help me to not feel pain. But that's a fallacy. So I could sense my ego self feeling so hurt with the thought that kept saying, I just don't exist to them. I probably don't matter. And I noticed immediately that it was coming from the ego. So this is the second step, to notice this thought that keeps on coming up, that creates so much pain for you, is ego-based. The ego that has separated itself from everybody else, it feels alone and unloved, and therefore it always wants to have the love from the closest people who are in our life. And therefore it demands a certain behavior of them so it won't feel in pain. Now, this is also a skill. It's an expertise that we all need to learn in order to empower ourselves emotionally and not get tricked by the ego mind, to know what it feels like when it's activated. You can always tell by its neediness and its wanting to demand of people to do certain things. It might even become a little dictator. So that's its giveaway signature. And as soon as you notice that, hold your tongue, basically. That's why I call it keep your mouth shut. You know, it's not to activate the ego and to project the pain. Because as a little side note here, it's very important to share your pain if you feel like doing that. If that helps you, to talk to a friend or a family member who you can trust, who will just listen and let you be and share it. You know, that's very healing. So what I mean by not projecting it forward and keep your mouth shut is to keep the ego at bay, to not perpetuate the pain again and again and again. When I was in my full-blown ego experience, I actually experienced it like as if I was in a little hologram, kind of close to my body, but a little bit next to me, like it was like a bubble here. And it actually felt like as if I was in a waking dream. I could sense it was a different reality, but it felt very real, just like a dream that we have at night feels very real. And so I noticed that there was something not quite right, but I do know how the ego feels, so that's actually the expertise that we need to experience and know that we are in the ego realm. So, and that's why I felt I was actually experiencing something from the past, because I was in the past. I was in a memory that wasn't happening right now. It didn't have anything to do with the present moment at all. And yet it felt so real. So that's what we need to be able to distinguish. We are not in reality, we are in the past. And that is the reason why we need to keep our mouth shut, because our ego is activated. So we don't want to make the ego bigger. We don't want to keep the ego alive with its demands and its power over us, because if we do, then we will never get out of that vicious cycle where the ego is always having like the power over us, because we haven't examined it. We haven't actually looked at it. What is going on there? And if we don't, then it's like an unconscious behavior that keeps on happening on autopilot because we haven't examined it. So by the moment we shine truth onto it and we look at it in detail, and we can now tell with our conscious mind, oh, I was just in a dream, I was in a bubble, in the ego realm. That's not the true me. And I was being pained by a belief, the belief I don't exist. Is that even true? Is this true that I don't exist? You see, this is an assumption the ego makes, and it makes it very real and very serious, and it feels very hurt by it. And because there is this sense of drama going on, you can also tell it's coming from the ego mind. So to be able to get out of this vicious cycle, of course, it is vitally important to take back your power and to own your feeling instead, and be strong enough that you can do that. And then you're taking back the presence and your own power, and the ego has got no say over you anymore, and that's the empowering part. Okay, so now you have actually connected with the pain, you felt it, you have stood with it, you gave it your time, your attention, you've uncovered an untrue belief, you know it's coming from the ego mind, and now it's time to let go of that thought, that belief, that's ingrained, that's so old, because it's actually the one that's producing your pain, right? It's never anybody on the outside. So this is now a very mighty uncovery, and it's very empowering already. But now you need to let go of that belief. But how? So you still need to understand the crucial part to actually detach from the pain and the belief, so that it's not going to come back again and again and again. So if all this was helpful to you, and maybe you've just taken away one little thing, please give me a like and subscribe to my channel for more empowering tips and processes to help yourself to become more present and become a better version of yourself and more resilient emotionally. So now that you're able to take back your responsibility to what everything is going on inside of you, and you're no longer looking outside to other people to blame or so on, you are now on the way to empowering yourself emotionally. And of course, this needs practicing, right? And remembering those steps when you are in that situation, because that is the hardest step now when it comes to doing it in real life. So now that you are able to be responsible, and you know that the pain was actually caused by a belief that is very old and has been sitting inside you, and you've been holding on to it unconsciously. You now need to let it go, or you can now send yourself the love that you wanted from other people. And they could not give it to you when you were maybe a child. And you still are longing for that love. That's usually the case. So the ego self is actually activating you because it wants your love. So it's still really, really valuable if you can just put your hand on your heart and say, I love you, I appreciate you, I love you exactly as you are, you're always in my heart, I love you, I love you, I love you, you know, as much as you need to, until you feel a love, a sense of love there for the hurt self, the ego self. So, and now I want to give you my top secret tip that I did, and I always do, and you need to do it in order to de-identify with the ego in time. You have to be fully present. And that means what I've already said, like be present and observe and just be there. And there is one more thing that is so crucial that you might overlook, or you might not be able to notice, that your mind is still actually battling against the people who are involved. So you are fully present with a neutral sense of being. So you don't have any good or bad agendas going on inside of you. You are just pure consciousness observing this situation, and therefore you have zero resistance towards anybody around you or anything that happened in that situation. You are able to just watch it on a movie screen as if you've got nothing to do with it, and as if you're just watching a film. You're watching yourself and you're seeing yourself in the third person, and you are detached. When you get to that place, you can also send compassion, I've had this this is the first time I experienced that, because I was able to fully experience the pain and also fully experience my pure presence. And in that few seconds, I felt even a tiny joy because I was in the presence and I wasn't identified with the pain. So this is the mastery. This is the experience you can expect when you've mastered it, and then you can really know it doesn't bother me. I can have a pain, but I'm not identified with it. And that's the secret. Because we are human beings and we are living in duality, and there will always be, well, I mean, less, you know, when you get older, there's less stuff coming up when you've worked on yourself, but life can still send you stuff that might upset you. And the trick is not to not get upset anymore, but to be able to stay calm and empowered and present and have no resistance. And then you've conquered emotional triggers. And if you're still new to all of this and you really want to learn more and not allow your mind to pull you in and tell you to not look at the pain and empower yourself, I've got another video coming up here now to talk about the same subject in a similar way, but there is always more nuggets in there from a different angle, and it gives you more insights so you really understand the topic better. Until next time, take care.